Are you looking to improve your ACT reading score really quickly? My name is Rebecca Beard and I own a local tutoring company. In our company, we cover everything from K through college, but I do a lot of ACT and SAT prep. In myself, I have coached a collection of kids to improve their reading score from the teens into the 30s, along with kids from the 20s into the 30s as well with the ACT reading. I find it's actually a pretty easy section to coach and it doesn't take a ton of studying. So today is to be able to take these practices, quickly turn around your score or your child's score and be able to easily increase the ACT reading score. And then another clarifying thing is this is being recorded in July of 2025. The ACT is in the process of completely changing the test. I am going to be talking about the old version and the new version of the test. At this point, I've taken the new version of the test twice. I've also been certified and gone through ACT's 12-hour ACT reading certification as well. So getting all those disclaimers out here, this is going to be like my 5 key things that have helped substantially increase students' scores in reading for the ACT section. This is not based on if you are a strong reader, but this is kind of how I pivot and direct kids along the way. So the first one is actually a really easy test. I take an ACT reading passage. I've got books. There's tons of resources online. It doesn't have to be anything you pay for. And I sit there with a timer and figure out if the kid is a slow or is a fast reader, because that tells me how to pivot. So the ACT reading section, even with the rewrite, is going to be 4 passages. And within these 4 passages, on the new form, it's going to be 40 questions in 40 minutes, so you can easily math it out. But that being said, what a lot of kids will do is they will spend way too much dang time reading the passages and not prepare, and then don't have any time to do the questions, and then they're going to have to make up answers and guess, and then it's a hot mess. But what I've worked with is I kind of figure out the kids' reading style, because some people are slow readers, some people are fast readers. And I always give the example is I married a computer programmer who's brilliant, but he's a really slow reader. So like with people like him, I'm going to do a different tactic. So how do you practically do this? Is I take open a passage, I slap on a 90-second timer. You can do it on YouTube, your phone, whatever. And then I see how far the child gets in the reading passage. And I pull an ACT reading passage, I pull one from an old test. If they get over halfway, and then they can kind of tell me a little bit of what's going on in the passage, then I am confident that they probably can read the whole passage and still answer the questions. But I have kids that will be on the second or third paragraph after that 90-second, and depending on how long the passage is, but I'm sitting in like the 30 to 40% range, or they have no clue what they just read, their reading strategy is going to be different. So if a kid is a fast reader, in 90 seconds, they've pretty much finished the passage or about done, or at least way over halfway, then I'm going to suggest that they read the passage, especially with this new version, and then go to the questions from there. If they are a slow reader, this is my big thing, and I actually still do this with myself because I've slowed down with age, is I read the first and the last paragraph on the ACT reading section. You do feel whiplash, so I have to warn people of that, and then I go to the questions. It is an open book test, so you have to plan to go back and forth and back and forth. That's why if you just read the passage, you're still having to save time to go look back in the text. You treat it as an open book test, not a read, memorize, and then brain dump. So kind of just nailing down the strategy per the kid's unique reading ability, then that's how I've had a lot of like success from that point. Then the next thing is I order the passages. And this is what I mean is once you are given that reading test, you can go back and forth through all of the 4 passages. I like personally the 4th passage because it is more of a natural science passage. My degree is in science, and so for me that's easier, but a lot of kids do better on the 1st passage, which tends to be classified as a literary narrative. But I do this because most kids, when they come back from the break, really need to be able to kind of build up their momentum. So what I'll suggest is that they order the passages. So they open up, they start with the passages that are going to be the easiest for them and maybe the most interesting for them, and they just can do this by kind of skimming. I will say start with the easiest passage for you. If you're stuck, normally the first or the fourth passage is going to be the easiest. According to the ACT, especially given during training, that the reading levels are about 10th grade through college. What's really interesting to know is the passages with the more line number options are actually a harder academic reading level. So I tell kids, if you're really kind of debating between, if you see a bunch of line numbers and all the questions, that's going to be your hardest one. And the reason I do that is, one, yes, you build up momentum and confidence, and two, if they are going to run out of time, I'd rather them run out of time on the passage that's going to be harder if they're going to have to guess on a question. It statistically pays off substantially more. Okay, the next one is going to be pretty much starting with the correct items on the reading passage. And what I mean by this is, let's say you get through the passage and then you need to go to the line number items. It's normally bad, actually. I start with the less wordy questions, and then I build up from there to go ahead and find all of these options. And then once I get the momentum in doing the easier questions, then I go to the hard questions. And once I get the momentum feeling going, I feel a lot better. I have a deeper understanding, and then those really hard questions become a ton easier. The ACT reading is a really literal test. If you are having to pull your own meaning from the ACT reading passage, you probably got it wrong. They really just want you to be able to verbatim, as much as possible, find it in the text and match it to the answer. And sometimes it will be literally word for word if it's going to be one of those easier questions. If it's going to be a hard question, it takes a little bit of interpretation, but they are very literal. So if you feel like you're jumping to conclusions on a question, you are probably wrong. It has even helped me is attach meaning to the reading passage. And before you just slight me for this, it actually helps. It's been proven. I have kids who even come tell me, they're like, oh my gosh, I started with the passages I actually cared about, and then I attached a piece of meaning and I was so much more engaged. The way you do this is I get a passage about art history. Instead of being like, ugh, I'm annoyed about this, I'd rather not do this passage, I think, okay, I skim it. This passage is about art history. I remember when I went to Italy and I saw all this beautiful art and how important art is to our culture. Done. I've attached meaning. And so when I am reading that passage, I am actively remembering more things because I'm attaching it to myself. As human beings, we are naturally self-focused. And I know we all have big giving hearts, but we are more likely to pay attention when we can attach it to us. This is especially true with teenagers, and just going that little extra mile helps a ton. So that being said, I hope your ACT reading section goes well. This is a really easy strategy to practice. You can find free resources online. We are also able to help tutor one-on-one. We are located in a small area in Florida, but we are also available to meet online. I'm also going to include down below a link to a free diagnostic test. It's linked to our AI platform, but there's some resources that are completely free. And then if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks again.